said, I'm really glad you could be here. Thanks so much for coming. Today, we're just talking about the challenges of running in less than perfect circumstances. So, for example, bad weather or when life gets in the way. I've called this session Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable because it's probably one of the key mental facilities that we need to develop as runners. I'm going to just talk very briefly a little bit about me. I know we've spoken about it in person, but just to give you some background and also to a frame of reference to anyone who's watching this on the recording. We'll talk about how frequently running and our run training is a metaphor for life and how we can influence our running success through things like habits and practicalities. And of course, the whole purpose of today is to discuss hacks and tips for running in rough conditions and to share some pretty useful resources with you, along with the actual physical aspect of strength training. So very much two parts to today, mental strength and physical strength, both equally important, and hopefully some really practical insights. This is me. I'm also known locally as the slow coach. I am the antithesis of the typical runner. As many of you know who have trained in person with me, I don't look like a stereotypical runner. I don't talk about running the way most runners talk about running. I am passionate about running, but only came to it very late in life, in my 40s, as a means to better mental health, better physical health. And lots of other benefits, time on my feet, time alone, time to think, creative time. A big one for me was time away from my kids, but also a point in time in which I could really mark and cherish having a healthy body and using it. So there's no natural physical gift in this body at all, quite the opposite. I used to pretend to be sick to get out of school athletics carnivals. I've never been sporty. I've never really enjoyed sport. And the truth of the matter, and I'll touch on this more later, is that I probably still don't. I don't really love the run, but I truly love who I am after the run. And that's a big part of why I do what I do. Many years ago, I had, well, not that many, I suppose about 15 years ago, I had a series of wake-up calls, for want of a better word. My husband was diagnosed with cancer. Fortunately, he's fine today. But in fairly quick succession after that, two other very close girlfriends experienced pretty severe cancer diagnoses, and unfortunately, both of them passed away. And there are a few other people in my life, both before and since then, who have done a very brave battle with illness. Some of them are still with us and some aren't. But all of them are a daily reminder to me that I have the one thing that so many people in my life don't, and that is physical health. And for the best part of my 50 years, I have taken that for granted. I've spent an awful lot of time on the couch, eating Doritos, watching daytime TV. And I decided that a gift to my future self, one day when I am old and grey and full of sleep and nodding by the fire, I'll be able to look back on my life and say, well, there was a chapter where I really pushed myself. I marked the chapter in my life where I had a healthy body. I was there for the sunrises and the sunsets and the big, hard, sweaty races. And I took this body to its absolute limits. And I have this gift of the treasure trove of memories. I used my body, and I'm grateful for that. So that's a big part of why I run. I run because I can. I run on behalf of all the people in my life who can't. As many of you know, I am also a local running coach. This is a fairly recent development. About just short of 2 years ago, I qualified as an athletics running coach through Athletics Australia.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. I set myself the task of this slow coach movement. And a big part of why I did this was just to reframe some of the mainstream running conversation. When I look at what generally fills my media feeds, if I look up running in any capacity, whether it's on the newsstands or on my Instagram feed, I see images and messages like this everywhere. Let's get fitter, leaner, faster. Let's lose 10 kilos. Let's run fast. There was another one here somewhere. Look at this, the really, really strong abs, the speed up now. Here's another one, exact same word, stronger, leaner, faster. Well, but that's exactly the point. I just feel like these sorts of images, and they are absolutely beautiful, but they don't represent me. And now this is a screen grab of my Instagram feed. So some really magnificent looking, I guess mostly female bodies, and they are fairly ubiquitous. There's usually a very slim, very beautiful woman with a perfect ponytail and a crop top, or some variation of that. Almost always white, in my instance, because the algorithm knows who I am, I guess mostly female. But I just don't see myself represented there. I'm 50 years old, I'm menopausal, I have a mummy tummy, I run slowly, and I certainly don't run. Well, I have many reasons for running. It's not to look like that or be represented like that. So I started the Slow Coach as a way to have a different kind of running conversation. And we've already touched on this, but it's about how running is a means to personal pride. It's a means to time alone and time to think. It's a way of measuring myself against the only benchmark that matters to me, and that's who I was yesterday, and to sort of a sense of where I am on the ruler towards, you know, a modest 5K success or taking part in a local community fun run. I'm never going to be represented on the Olympic podiums. And I figured that there are probably other people out there who would also like to have a running conversation that looks a little bit different. Which brings us to running in adversity, because not only do we not necessarily always get represented by the mainstream running media, but there are many, many other obstacles in our running lives. So bad weather, today is a case in point. It can be really hard to get out the door. Most runners will agree that the hardest part of any run is putting on your shoes. So just getting started can be tough. Not feeling great, especially if you've had a forced period of isolation or you've had an infection. If we're working from home, we have lots of interruptions. And as you can tell, today is not going to be a motivational story or a gauzy tale of perfect ponytails and flat abs, because most of us are stuck in a Groundhog Day at the moment. But believe it or not, running it's kind of a key to unlocking the shared potential that we all have to survive, hibernate, rejuvenate, and rebuild. So there are a few little tips to remembering just how to get over that inertia of starting a run when you really, really don't want to. A run doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, they very rarely are. An imperfect run, an ugly run, an uncomfortable run, a short run, a slow run, any kind of run is better than no run. Don't let perfect get in the way. And bear in mind that imperfect bodies are capable of incredible things. Now, those Instagram and running magazine photos that we looked at earlier were magnificent. But I would just like to point out that this somewhat flabby, menopausal, middle-aged, double-chinned, red-faced woman in this picture is me, running an 80-kilometer ultra marathon just over a year ago. Wow. From Bondi to Manly. So really, there is no obstacle to achieving whatever it is you want in your running journey. And the only requirement is not giving up. That's it. That's just don't give up and you'll get there. Running, of course, like many challenges, is a metaphor for life. It's hard. Not every run feels good. Many of them suck. We don't always like running. Things get in the way of our runs, injuries, obstacles, interruptions, children, illnesses. And you will fail. You will fail. Failure is as much a part of running as it is part of life. Training runs won't go to plan. Races won't go to plan. Injuries will happen. Things will come up which mean you physically can't run or you can't line up for the start of a big important race. And how you deal with that is as much important to your running journey as it is to your journey in life. Running will hurt, but like many challenges in life, these things build incredible fitness, resilience, friendships, community, and of course, endurance. As I said already, I don't love running, but I do love being a runner. Habits are probably one of our most powerful keys to success. If you haven't already, I would Google the power of 1%. It's a school of thought. There's a great TED talk out there. There's some books. There's some many motivational speeches on YouTube. Making a 1% change to your program can have very, very massive and incremental impacts. 1% of your day is only about 14.4 minutes. If you can do something for 14.4 minutes, do it, because that's 1% better than you did yesterday. Eat 1% cleaner, train 1% harder, be 1% kinder to yourself. All of those things really, really add up. Small steps. Don't focus on the big 80-kilometer race. Focus on the 2-kilometer training run you're doing today, or focus on the journey to the next like post. Those small steps, along with being brave and being present, are just great ways to keep yourself on the ladder. I find that having a goal is a fantastic motivator. Now, I know that goals don't work for everyone, so this is very much me speaking from personal experience. Some people will say that goals keep you in a constant state of failure because you're not there yet. And that's true. If that's your outlook, then by all means disregard what I'm saying. But for me, a goal is something that forces me to remain accountable to myself. So for example, what I will frequently do is sign up for a race. And that way I know that I'm committed to a 21K or a 10K or a 42.2K or whatever the case is. And that goal makes me get up for my training runs because it's just quite a powerful motivator. Having a main goal and being accountable to friends, posting it on social media, telling family, writing it in a journal, keeps me training. But a big tip that I'll share with you, and one that took me years to learn, is to have a second goal as well. So what I used to do, and what I did more than once, was set myself a big goal. So for example, a huge one in my early running career was running my first 5Ks without stopping. And I trained for weeks, and it was a huge achievement. And the thrill of crossing that 5K finish line was insurmountable, and I felt amazing. But what I then promptly did was hopped on the couch and stayed there for 6 months. Because I felt like I'd achieved it and that goal was ticked. And then, of course, when the time came to do the next goal, I had to start all over again. So after doing that 3 or 4 or 5 or possibly more times, I have decided that for me, it's always great to have a second goal. So for example, if I sign up for my 5K race, I'll then just have a little thought at the back of my head that says, and when I've done that 5K, I might think about doing a 10K after that. It's just something that keeps me moving forward so that I don't have those massive lulls in between goals. But far, far, far more powerful than a goal is a why. And I've already shared that with you, that I run because I can. I run to cherish a healthy body. I would really suggest that having a why is possibly the biggest way to overcome any obstacle in your life, whether it's running or otherwise. If you have a reason, it gets you out of bed and keeps you going far, far longer than the temporary goals do. And in more than 10 years of running, I can honestly say that there hasn't been a single run, not one, where I haven't thought about those wonderful friends that I lost and the healthy body that I have that gives me that run in that moment. But despite all of those wonderfully inspirational things, runs do get tough. Now, I know we have a Jeff on the call. So this Jeff here refers to my friend, not really, a coach called Jeff Galloway, who you are welcome to Google. He has a range of really fantastic running plans that integrate running with walking. So jeffing, as it's frequently known in the running community, is a great way to get through a tough run. Usually it consists of walking for a period of time and running for a period of time, excuse me, but you can use it over any distance, and you'll see even marathoners, and in particular ultra marathoners, will often have a jeffing strategy for their race. So that might be run for 1 kilometer, walk for 300 meters, or run for a song and walk for a song. But they will have a strategy that takes them across their whole distance, that gives themselves the walk breaks. And there's an awful lot of science to say that that will actually get you far further with greater efficiency and better fitness than if you just try and run the whole way. Another great strategy to overcoming a tough run is to chunk it up. So you can just set yourself the mental challenge of, I'm just going to run until I catch up with the guy in the red shirt, or until I pass that particular lamppost. Having music. I always do my long runs with music. I find that they really fuel me. And having a mantra. So I've shared this before, but I particularly love the saying that pain is temporary, but pride lasts forever. And I'll sometimes even write that on my arm, so that when the run really starts to suck, I look at that, especially in a race context, and I go, you know what, I'm just going to suck it up. I'm just going to push through this, because in 3 kilometers time, I'll be over the finish line and I will have this memory for the rest of my life. Another great way to approach a difficult run or a difficult chapter in your life is to break it into 3 parts. The first part of any run is generally pretty easy, and we all enjoy it, and we tend to take off too quickly or run too hard. So this is where it's really important to run with your head. Remember your training, hold back. If you have a race plan or a run plan or a target pace in mind, you force yourself, you kind of sit on the brakes and you force yourself to run at that pace or according to your particular race strategy. The second part of the run is where your training kicks in, your heart and your legs find their rhythm, your VO2 max and your cardiovascular system kick in. And that's great. You run with your legs. You enjoy that run because you're going to feel really good. You make sure that you're keeping yourself on track. But the last part, the third part of any run, is frequently really, really tough. And that's when we have to run with our hearts. So it takes courage, it takes training, it takes fitness, it takes determination, and it takes a lot of motivation to keep ourselves going. And that's where the heart is. There are plenty of other tools and tricks to get through a tough run or a tough chapter. I would strongly suggest that you join a running club. If you're local to St Ives, please come along to the North Shore Run Club. You would be very welcome. We meet every Thursday at 6 p.m. at Warramoo Oval in St Ives. There's usually between 20 and 40 runners, and we welcome walkers too. We welcome dogs, we welcome parents and grandchildren and everything in between. And we generally all hang around afterwards for a social drink as well. Parkrun is a great tool for runners. It's a free timed 5K that takes place all over Australia and indeed all over the world every Saturday. Just look up the Parkrun website and go along to one of those. Socials. So if you follow the Slow Coach social media, you'll find out about regular social runs that we all go on together. We call them socials for obvious reasons, and there is always coffee involved. I would also suggest connecting with like-minded people in online forums and Pinterest and so on, and Facebook groups. It's a great way to make virtual friends, have a running conversation, ask questions, share challenges. Of course, Strava is a great way to remain accountable. If you're a stats junkie like I am, Strava tells you how your run compares to every other run you've done on that route. And if you like, it can also compare you to other runners in the area. Garmin training plans. If you have a smartwatch, a running watch, that can be a bit like having a coach on your wrist that beeps at you when it's time to go faster, or if you're going too fast, or if your heart rate's too high, or it really, really keeps you on track based on whatever plan it is you're following. There are some great YouTube movies. They're all free. I would strongly recommend one called I'm Not a Runner, which at the moment is free on SBS, I think. Or Brittany Runs a Marathon on Amazon Prime. Or a YouTube channel called The Running Channel, which it's updated a couple of times a week with really, really relatable coaches and runners sharing tips and hacks and insights and race stories and everything in between. And of course, books. And when I share the recording of today, I will also include a list of some great running books that can be very motivational. This is just another little mantra of mine that I do love. The miracle isn't that I finished. The miracle, especially for people with a body like mine, is that I had the courage to start. But we are here today to talk about strength training, and I have spent a fair bit of time discussing mental strength, but of course, physical strength is pretty important too. We work on physical strength a lot as runners because it gives us a lot of tools for the long run, particularly arm drive. So strength training across our whole body will usually impact our upper body and our arms as well. And arms are a phenomenally powerful kind of battery for our runs. The stronger your arm drive is, generally speaking, the stronger your legs will work. So we work on arm strength and upper body strength. Strength gives us good posture, especially a good core, a good running form. And as I've said many, many times, strength training is our primary insurance policy against injury prevention. So strong muscles, strong tendons, strong bones, strong fascia, strong ligaments, all collectively work like a kind of trampoline. And when that enormous force of our run is coming down through our body, our strong frame can catch that force. Runners who do regular strength training, generally speaking, have up to 50% fewer injuries than runners who don't. And the fewer injuries we have, the longer we can run for, both in terms of distance, time in the day, but also time in our lives. And I, for one, want to be running, honestly, till the day that I can't, which I hope is a really, really long time, which is why I'm so committed to strength training. Strength training, of course, gives us mental strength too. So being able to hold a plank for 2 minutes when it sucks builds that mental facility of remaining in that place that is so uncomfortable. But we force ourselves to stay there because that's what a marathon feels like. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable is a key factor of being a runner, physically and mentally. So strength workouts will generally consist of any combination of these things. And I would strongly recommend that we all do them at least twice a week. A series of squats. If you do just one thing as a runner, please do squats. Double-legged squats, single-legged squats, pistol squats, curtsy squats, step-up squats. Just do them. Try and do squats in reps of about 20, take a short break, do some more. They're going to flood your capillary beds in your glutes and quads and pelvic floor and knees and calves. And over time, they're going to build up a lot of strength quite quickly, actually. Deadlifts are a great one, especially for our core, lower back, upper bodies. So just grab a can of soup in each hand and do a couple of deadlifts a couple of times a day. Calf raises. Our calves at the very bottom of our legs, relative to the rest of the muscle groups, are really, really small. So they do a lot more work than the rest of our muscles, relatively speaking. So we spend a lot of time doing calf raises because that's just going to mean better protection against that repetitive impact, and less things like Achilles issues or even shin splints. Calf raises are awesome. Do them on one leg, do them on 2 legs, do them with bent knees, do them with straight knees, do them while you're boiling the kettle, do them while you're brushing your teeth. And combine those with lunges and banded work. So just to make sure we really, really build up that stability. We really need a lot of stability because, as I've said more than once, running is a one-legged exercise or a no-legged exercise. And you need a lot of stability to be able to control that movement safely. And then step-ups and jumps. So if you have access to a nice, big, safe, stable step up and down it as many times as you like, alternate the working leg, or do those jumps, those sort of box jumps with 2 legs up from a lower level to a top level, step back down, or do it on 1 leg. Once again, great ways to build strength and confidence and all those things. And once our bodies are nice and strong physically, that's really going to inform the endurance and the fitness that we have for our actual runs. And we build the physical strength here by doing things like hill repeats. Runners who ran with me last week in Macquarie Park will know that we did a pretty tough hill repeat session. Hills are a great way of building speed, building endurance, building fitness. They're also a great way of preventing injury. We also do intervals. So this periodization of training, of pushing ourselves hard and then giving ourselves a recovery, it's something you see again and again in running in a million different formats. But make sure that your running program integrates intervals. That might also take the form of pyramids, where your session gets gradually tougher, comes to a point and then gets easier again. Had we trained in person at Macquarie Park today, we would have done a pyramid. Fartlek is a very funny word that just means speed play. I think it's a Swedish word, where we just vary our speed over the course of a run. So you might like to make sure that your next long run includes sections where you go really slowly and appreciate the view, parts where you go really, really hard, parts where you do something in between. But it's really a variation in your speed so that you use all your different fitness systems, but also you introduce a sense of play and a sense of joy and a sense of variation to make sure that running remains fun. Your long, slow distance, the runner's drug. Once a week, a longer run is going to make sure you really build that fitness, and it's going to get you closer to your running goal. So try and integrate one long run a week. Most runners will do it on a Saturday or a Sunday. And generally the guiding principle is to not increase your long run by more than 10% in a week. So if you ran 3 kilometers last week, just run 3.3 or thereabouts this week. So you go up in small increments so that this load doesn't become too much too quickly. Managing your fitness load, managing your physical load, it's another way we build strength. We build it wisely, we build it slowly. That way we don't incur injuries. And finally, we can't get through life, any kind of challenge, without proper rest, without proper sleep, and without proper nutrition. And it's very easy to forget those. After a big run, you might feel really justified in tucking into a giant plate of chocolate pancakes. But I would suggest that being mindful of your nutrition, eating well, eating proteins and whole meal carbohydrates, sleeping well, paying attention to your rest. Those are something that's going to, over time, get you a lot further and faster. So that brings me to the end of my little presentation. I am very happy to take any questions if you have any. Hi, Fiona.